Hey everybody, welcome to Myopia Movies. This week we're talking about Dragonslayer. Now, funny enough, this had been on our schedule for a while. Matt has been pushing it for a couple seasons now. However, out of nowhere, it announced it was getting a 4K re-release. So here we are, in honor of the 4K re-release of Dragonslayer, talking about a kind of forgotten, fun fantasy movie. So thanks for all you do, thanks for sharing, thanks for reviewing. Yeah, you know what? I'll say it now. Let's get a few more reviews. It's been a bit, and we want to keep growing as we approach our 10th season. Thanks, everyone. Welcome to Myopia Movies. This week we're watching 1982's Dragonslayer, or 1981 Dragonslayer, excuse me, the movie that saw all the other movies. I'm your host, Nick Hoffman, and on the panel we have
Charlie Rose.
And this is a movie, I believe it's a Paramount movie that was put out by Disney. It also clearly watched Return of the Jedi. It clearly watched Lord of the Rings. It clearly watched everything else. But somehow, despite that, it comes to be quite a little charming movie.
Absolutely. I sort of love it because it had good... They knew the limits of the technology at the time. Mm-hmm. And the practical effects are solid. Because they took advantage of perspective. Right. And they didn't try to do too much and make it look bad. There's some moments, though.
There are some moments. But I mean, I will say, it does I guess you'd call it the Steven Spielberg school of don't show the monster unless you absolutely have to. And therefore, the dragon of the titular slaying is very rarely in the movie. But when we see it, they use it, and it works pretty well. And the composite shots have aged quite nicely, all things considered. And again, it's all light hitting an object. But I guess where we have to start is, how do I put this? There's just something about the 80s, and these faces don't exist anymore. When we're in the medieval towns, and again, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that we told women to stop smoking and drinking while they were pregnant. But there's just faces that are practically special effects on their own. And we have the male lead where there's a romantic interest and he's an action figure of one of these sword and sandals video games played by the comedian Peter McNichol. And
yeah, well, I would hesitate to say hero.
That's true.
Mean, he was the hero. He was not the muscle-bound stud hero that you've come to expect from sword and sorcery or sword and sandal movies.
It reminds me of the Star Wars, because he's a very Luke Skywalker. Because Luke Skywalker's also not a big hero.
Yes.
Although, have you seen the original movie poster where he's holding his arm up and he's ripped? That's the disconnect there.
I know, right? Exactly. No, it definitely has, it's funny, you bring up the fact that Disney was attached to this, but it definitely has Sword in the Stone vibes going on.
Absolutely.
And I think that's sort of interesting. It's a great movie, I think. Uh-huh. It just, we'll talk about where it sort of, slips up along the way.
So, had you seen this before?
Yes, I did. I mean, this was one of the you had to watch it movies. I think if I'm thinking about the 80s, the big sword and sorcery movies, of course, are going to be Conan. Right. It's going to be this Dragonslayer. Beastmaster is another one. And Kroll, which is a strange one. Have y'all done that one yet?
We have not. That's a stay tuned.
That's a stay tuned.
Well, and I will say, it's a little bit different because it's supposed to be quote unquote historical, but Excalibur, I think, would fall into that.
Oh yeah, Excalibur's a good one.
Red Sonja, which is the...
Oh, I tried to forget that one.
I'm not saying it's good.
Yeah.
But it was a thing, is this the decade of the Barbarian Brothers?
Yeah, well, and here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think that Dungeons and Dragons was starting to be on the rise. Mm-hmm. Satanic Panic was definitely growing. And it was sort of living in the space of, well, people like dragons and knights and things like that. I mean, you didn't see much of that like in the 90s and the early aughts and heck, even today, I guess. But D&D is back with a vengeance.
Right.
But in the 80s, I don't know. It just seemed like it was all over the place.
Well, I think back then, the 80s, it started out with, you kind of alluded to it, this movie is unusual because so much of what we were talking about was the muscle dudes. Like, it's essentially an action movie. But then by the back end of the decade, we get the Dark Crystals, we get Labyrinth, we get Willow, which is, Jim Henson-y kind of magic.
Yeah.
This seems more like it belongs at that end of the decade in some ways.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because it was lacking. It's funny you mentioned that. If they had just poured a little bit more family into this,
yeah,
and you know what I'm talking about, that little oomph that they need to make it a family Disney movie,
right?
Then I think it would have like exploded all over the place.
Well, and to your point, if this had been Jim Henson and then there had been a few more gleep-gloppy creatures around that were puppets, then we're already there. There's the one big bad, but then there's like his little buddy is, instead of being that old man who takes one for the team in the first 20 minutes, it's an anthropomorphic. I mean, again, then it's just Labyrinth or Dark Crystal, but still, there's a reason why that or the Never-Ending Story works. Yeah. He has a little buddy that survives, and then when it dies, it's extra tragic, as opposed to this complaining old man. I believe I saw it once or twice because this is Paramount, so I think it was just like a CBS afternoon movie. Because all you have to do is edit 2 seconds out, and it's a perfectly TV-friendly film, right? There's 1/2 second of nudity that doesn't add anything, because the idea that no one could tell she was a woman is outrageous.
Yeah.
But talking about magical realism. But but other than that one instant, I'm sure this was on TV all the time, right? And it's right at 90 minutes, which is where you want to be for a made-for-TV movie, because they'll stretch it out for 2 hours. And this has better effects than most made-for-TV movies, right?
Yep.
To me, the shocking thing is how forgotten this movie is. Because every other example we mentioned, I bet you there's still a fan base for it. Krull is a bad movie.
Yep.
Conan, Sonia. They even remade Conan about a decade ago with Dwayne Johnson. But like this, even Willow has a Netflix show.
Yeah.
Like, how has this not come back? Maybe it's that the rights are split between Disney and Paramount, but I can imagine this turning into something because it's an interesting world they've created.
An interesting world that has dragons and magic and God and Jesus.
It's interesting. That doesn't happen much.
Yeah.
But also, because I do like the put upon preachers. We have put upon preachers in both movies we're going to record tonight.
Yeah.
But I do dig how this world has these kind of rules, but it is also traditional medieval. It's very, actually, what if medieval stuff actually did happen, right? Merlin would have been real in this world, and the dragon of St. George fame would have been real in this world. But otherwise, it's, people sacrificing for a lottery. It's got all these little charming bits that are tied together with greasely-ass 80s people, right? Like, there's no special effects here. There's no, I liked Game of Thrones. It was fine. But they're really good-looking people in this. No. Medieval this up a little bit. Give people, strong cheekbones and scarred face. It's cool. It looks great because of that. This gritty-ass Gandalf wizard at the beginning, too, is pretty awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, and let's not forget the trope of filming a medieval type of on the bogs where they, blow, smoke in front of the actual, filming to say, ooh, spooky.
That's right.
It's oh, bless your heart.
Well, you know what? It's perhaps it's that kind of thing, which you're right? It's almost Scooby-Doo-esque at times. But it's also the reason why I think the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings works, because he was also actually filming on bogs, right?
Yep.
There is also something about actually being in that setting that makes it all the more satisfying.
Absolutely.
You want to give me the plot? You got the plot here?
Well, let's see if this is the one part that I think it does sort of. It's a complicated plot.
It's high fantasy, so there's 1,000 things that are going on.
Yeah, exactly. So let me see if I can go through it. Please jump in if I get a couple things out of order. It opens up at the Wizard's Keep. And so you've got basically, Ulrich is this this grand sorcerer,
Right.
that these individuals have made a pilgrimage, and it seems to be one young man and about 5 or 6 middle-aged men who
Right.
have gone, and they're basically saying, we need help with a dragon that's basically holding us hostage. It's what is it when it's a protection racket,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
if you bring me 2 virgins a year, I won't destroy your lands.
Which is something.
Yeah,
It's-
exactly.
I mean, this is almost edging into like vampire or werewolf. Like, we're just like mythical monster. We got this thing and we've got it down. And it's really something. Yeah.
Exactly. So, he basically said, he Ulrich does the doddering wizard and sort of says, no, I'm not going to go, but then finally says yes. And they're just about to start on the journey, and Tyrion, who happens to be like I don't know, I guess he's like the king's guard or the head of the king's secret police or whatever it is, and of this community, and basically says, hey, we're not going to mess with the status quo, and my way of doing that is I'm going to test you.
Right.
And so basically you've got Ulrich, just says, go get me this knife, to Galen. Galen, of course, being his apprentice,
Right.
the Peter McNichol role. He goes up to the room, throws the knife down, then all of a sudden magic happens and all the doors shut, locking Galen in. And it turns out that Tyrion kills Ulrich. And with this
immediately.
immediately with this knife. And so he's like, oh, well, that was easy. This is done. And here we go. So, Tyrion leaves. The remainder of the people are still there, and they burn Ulrich. Okay.
Yeah.
And apparently he leaves a message with his manservant, I think,
Yeah.
to Galen about dumping his ashes in the river of lake when the time is special. The river of fire, or the lake of fire.
The Lake of Fire when the time is right.
When the time is right, or something.
Which is so much
Which is
nonsense.
like,
Great.
whatever.
Great, sure.
And so, that happens. Well, Galen finds the necklace that that Ulrich had and realizes he can do magic with that. So, I don't know, with stars in his eyes, I guess he goes and, tells this contingent, hey, I will go, I will defeat this dragon.
Right.
I mean, it's freaking crazy. People are doing dumb things in this movie, and I classify this as a dumb thing.
Well, I mean, this is Joseph Campbell, like the hero's journey, like 101.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's 7,000 other things going on. Oh, and by the by,
well, I will pause.
Please.
Not really the hero's journey as much as it is the fool's journey.
the hero's goings on.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't mention this, but do you know why we're doing it this week?
Why is that?
It's getting a 4K release.
Oh, nice.
This movie's 42nd anniversary.
Well, there you go.
So they've announced that they're releasing this in 4K at the end of the beginning of the next week. So
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, it was just like, okay. And credit where credit's due. I bet you it will look incredible because it's all practical effects.
Absolutely.
And I will say there's not exactly a theme to mention, but the music across this is incredible.
Oh, yeah.
And it was
absolutely.
nominated for an Academy Award for it. It lost to Chariots of Fire, which, catchy.
Well, I mean, that's understandable. What theme do you remember to this day?
Chariots of Fire. Which one is parodied in the next Wayne's Brothers movie, right? Like, because it's, as the kids would say today, it's a banger.
It's a banger.
But this one, again, is hard to lose when you go full orchestral. And we have a scene where they're having a medieval shindig.
Oh, yeah.
And there's lutes, and you're just losing your mind.
Exactly.
Everyone's having a good dance.
But yeah, no, that's a great segue, because basically he goes with them and things happen. The manservant dies along the way. He discovers that Valerian, the young boy, is actually a young woman. And his and Galen's way of dealing with the dragon is basically just to cause a landslide, a rock slide in front of the cave where the dragon lives, and supposedly trapping him in.
That's right. And we should have mentioned that as his apprentice, he's kind of learning magic,
Yeah.
but it kind of goes in and out, and because he's not confident with it yet.
Exactly.
And so this is also kind of that precocious kid 90s movie thing of like, if only you believe in yourself, you can do anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, he's also dragged in front of the king,
Right.
to explain himself. And the king is like, well, basically you need to prove yourself. He tries, he doesn't have this confidence.
Right.
He can't do the magic, but the king knows as he keeps grabbing his neck where the necklace is. So the king takes the necklace and basically shoos him along his way.
That's right.
They're moving. I believe this is also at the same time that the dragon busts free.
That's right.
By causing all these earthquakes and breaking through and causing all sorts of trouble. So now they have to do the lottery once more.
That's right.
And this is when weird subplot happens with the king's daughter.
Right. So I mean, we should mention this now. What's the woman's name who's pretending to be a man the whole time?
Oh, that would be
Valerian. So Valerian, played by Caitlin Clark, appears with the early gang of marauders looking for a Dragonslayer.
Yeah.
But she's dressed, I guess, like a man. It's kind of the Mulan thing where they just strap body armor to her, and she's kind of more androgynous.
Make her short hair.
They cut her hair short, but it's not that short because in the next, eventually it's just like long enough that they're like, oh, she's beautiful. Eventually, in the one scene they'd have to cut for TV, Galen dives naked into the pool with her, into like a pond with her, and sees her naked underwater because the second he dives under, the water becomes crystal clear, which is amazing. But he goes, "You're a woman," which I was like, wait, that was supposed to be a surprise. Because whatever. But she apparently hid out as a man because only virgin daughters can be sacrificed.
Yeah.
And so the dad disguised her as a boy so that she wouldn't be in the lottery. And she, in a very, kind of late 80s, like anti, it's almost a classist jag. Mm-hmm. The rich make sure that their daughters are never taken, which comes up later because that's exactly what Galen says to the princess, Elspeth?
Yeah, Elspeth.
Yeah, Elspeth. I also just want to mention my favorite character and his death was right where I cut you off, which is the preacher.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's like, how dare you? A man of God is not afraid of these mythical creatures and they're not real. And then the dragon comes up and he starts praying as though he, again, like St. George of old, is going to slay the dragon with the Bible. And the dragon just ends
Just absolutely, just fricassees him.
I will also say, just because we're here, and I mean, you and I are a fan of the theme parks and such, they actually made a 40-foot dragon animatronic. If this was anyone other than Paramount, if it was Universal or full-on Disney, that would have been in a theme park.
Absolutely.
Because it's a cool, because again, I remember the old school King Kong ride at Universal or the old school Jaws ride. Like, there's actually animatronics in that. And to have a big-ass dragon, that would have been cool as shit.
Which, by the way, apparently that's called go motion as opposed to stop motion because they have a mechanized parts of a dragon that are being controlled by a computer.
I hate that we have to have different words because again, it's all CGI now, so kids don't know it. And there's a great show on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us, and they talk about the one on Jurassic Park. If you want to learn what this stuff is, watch the Jurassic Park thing. Because, the difference between a Harryhausen and then Henson versus computers is that motion blur. When the thing lunges, it has to do something because otherwise it's just right? Yep. And that's what makes it look incredible. By the way, while we're here, do you know who played the priest, Brother Jacobus?
No, who is that?
Ian McDermott, the guy who's the emperor in all the Star Wars movies.
Oh, yeah.
Because this was just filmed in Scotland, and he was just a Scottish stage actor, so he occasionally would just show up for auditions.
You know,
and
got to pay the bills, might as well.
And I mean, again, back then, like if you watch a Tim Burton movie or something, part of it was not, do you have the voice, but also do you have the strong cheekbones? You just got to look like something. Nowadays, everyone looks like a model. I don't care if those kids get killed at Crystal Lake. In the 70s and 80s, they have character to their face, and that makes it interesting.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. Everyone here had a look about them, a very character actor look, like they belonged in medieval times.
That's right. Like, and these craggy faces of these dudes who show up with axes. I'm like, yeah, they have craggy faces and axes, right?
Indeed.
You know, and I like, what's his name? The 11th Doctor.
Oh,
Daniel will edit out this awkwardness. Or maybe he won't that bad.
Maybe he won't. Yeah, exactly.
But
I don't know.
Smith.
Smith, yes. Matt Smith.
Matt Smith. But he has this baby face to him. You know, him and David Tennant, and that's fine because they're supposed to be kind of naive and fun in their show. Nah, I don't want them in my medieval period drama right now. I want my craggy faces. I want my Chris Lees. I want my apparently Ralph Richardson playing Ulrich. I don't know who that is, but damn it, he looks like a wizard.
Here's the thing. All these, basically several of these characters, I know I've seen before. I know I've seen in other things. No. I just can't place them.
Exactly. And that's why, again, it's 1981, so Peter McNichol looks like a child, even though I'm sure he's
absolutely.
27.
Exactly. I mean, he's definitely, he was born in 1954, so, do the math. He's,
27,
actually.
I do like it when old man gets it. They're on this quest. They're 20 minutes into this movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's practically a Monty Python bit because he turns around and splashes the water, and all of a sudden he hears.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm dying. What did the plot device tell you? What did he tell you? And he's just dead. He's like, take this satchel from me.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll know when to dump it into the lake of what? Lake of fire.
Peter McNichols. It's just, he's losing his mind, but again, someone just killed his buddy.
Exactly.
And that's when we're reintroduced to this team of goons led by Valerian, and we're back at the Dragon's keep. Whatever. It's
well, yeah. This is when he does his magic and causes the landslide, right? And locks the dragon away. The dragon comes back, and now they have to do the lottery again.
That's right. The landslide brings him down. And by the way,
landslide brings him.
And by the by, this is very King Kong because we have tied to the stake with the cuffs, and she's brought through town. And when we're here, where he's about to bring the landslide down, he's like holding the cuffs because for how kiddish, it's not a kid movie, but it's for how kiddish most of this is, where the woman is trying to tear the cuffs off her flesh and she's bleeding.
Oh, absolutely.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah, no. It's got some dark moments. But it's also very tropey, the woman struggling against her chains as she's waiting to be sacrificed to the great beast.
And again, it's very Fay Ray or something like, help me. And it's over the top. Meanwhile, he enters the cave on, he enters Yoda's cave. This is literally there's moss hanging down. It's, I know this is also directly out of The Hobbit, but it's not quite. This feels much more like he's about to face his greatest foe in the first act, because we're still only 30 minutes in. This is a third of the way through the movie. In fact, when I was watching it, it surprised me that he gets there so quick. I thought the whole voyage would be to get there.
Exactly. The voyage was 5 seconds.
Right. He's called to action and then saves the day, kind of. Well, he thinks he does. He claims he does, but he doesn't actually. But he causes the landslide.
Wait, I thought he caused the landslide. He
does.
Okay, good.
But he thinks he's telling everyone he's killed the dragon. But he hasn't.
And all he did was trap it.
He did.
Well, supposedly.
But this is when we get the reveal that she's actually a girl. It's the she's all that or whatever. It's
she takes down her hair and flips it around, and all of a sudden now she's beautiful or something. Yeah.
And the dad's like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And she looks slightly different, and everyone's shocked. Nay's shocked. But it's because she's the only girl left in town because everyone else has been sacrificed to the dragon, I guess.
Exactly.
But I also just love I know it's 81, but Peter McNichols is so 70s with his little curly fro and his
absolutely.
like toe-headedness.
Exactly. Sort of innocent with that squeaky voice at times.
It is. And I mean, it's in 1977, he could show up dressed like a peasant somewhere. It would have been fine. But now 1981, they're playing this kind of lute and he's like, let's break it down medieval style. And this dance just starts happening.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's having, a grand old medieval time.
We're dancing in a circle. My God.
Exactly.
This man is a revolutionary on thy Solon train. And everyone's like, you had a daughter this whole time? Well, son of a bitch. Mine died 20 years ago. They're all okay with it?
Yeah, apparently.
They're all just kind of fine. And the guy with the beard and the very obvious hairpiece is kind of like, you shouldn't have hidden that from all of us. But right as the party's getting started, the King's men show up.
Exactly.
And these King's men were the ones who stabbed the wizard at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who...
Tyrion, the King's guard.
And I know you talked about this, but that stabbing scene is the most ridiculous scene. Because, again, he throws the knife down, missing the guy's hand by half an inch.
Yeah.
Right? It's very dramatic. And he goes, I'll say an incantation, and they'll never kill me. And you just see, and he dies.
It's just so anticlimactic, and everyone's just like, what the hell?
What was the point of that?
We walked all this way for that?
And especially since, again, everyone at this point in the world has read Lord of the Rings, and it's the 70s, and like you said, D&D is back, and that's also Lord of the Rings, and the Bakshi version is out. There's no Balrog. He dies because of a parlor trick gone wrong. It's like one of those top 5 lists of magic tricks gone bad. Right? Like, he didn't catch the bullet, actually. Like, that's how it's played, and everyone lays him down. They're like, oh, fuck, the wizard's dead.
I mean, you and this is actually important for later, but you get this feeling that he's sort of a fraud, right? That he's not a real sorcerer, that he just, all he can do is like snap his fingers and make flames appear. And that like flames, and not even like useful flames, like on a candle.
Right. It really is. It's like close-up magic.
Yeah.
And then when the kid causes the avalanche, he suddenly thinks he's hot shit.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, is great because after they break up the shindig, they're like, lift the table. Again, very Ghostbusters-y. And he just kind of knocks it over.
Oh, yeah.
And apologizes, which is just, it's the best. So they lock him in the dungeon.
Yep.
And this is where that whole, oh, father never actually put you in the raffle for human life.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. That's important. I forgot. You're right. Basically, yes, Princess Elspeth, she never went in the raffle.
Right.
And so she was never in danger. And apparently she's bothered by this.
And this is where it comes together. He's like, look, you are here because blah, 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 and you were never actually a part of this. And she goes, more of your peasant lies, or whatever she says. But then the king and his advisor are just staring at this map and trying to figure it out. And she goes, was I a bet? No, was I in the pool for the lottery? And the advisor goes, someone's been talking. And then they go back to the map.
I know. It's just like,
just go back to the map.
It's like, can't you just lie effectively?
A little bit. You're a king. At the end, he turns out to be a decent liar. I love the Dragonslayer bit. That's funny to me.
Yeah.
I also want to just say, clearly this was filmed. It says Scotland, but I believe it's filmed where there's actual castles and people are actually in these giant keeps. But past that, they're like, we don't have a lot of money for set decoration. So like when the dragon turns out to not be dead and it's attacking and such, there's like an earthquake and they're doing this Star Trek thing where they're shaking the camera. But there's like 6 people running around.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's no tapestries. They're just like, oh, shaky, shaky, shaky. It's really great. They do like the candles, though, which helps with the visuals.
It does. They made good use of their budget. I will say that.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know what the budget was. I imagine half of it went to ILM to make that damn dragon.
Yeah.
But it works. Everything here works. When they kill the wizard, it turns green, which I assume is just adding some chemical to the fire. But it looks good. They think it through, which is... I guess one of the things you'll always say about 80s special effects is since they were expensive and they had 1 or 2 takes because you had to use them, they had to think the shots through in advance.
Yep.
And in bad movies nowadays, or mediocre to good movies even, sometimes that you can clearly see they just said, we'll add the special effects later.
Yep.
And they move on.
Fix it in post.
Right. And so they don't even know where to look.
Exactly.
Right? And here, when the fucking dragon's overhead, even if it's not moving, he's like, a dragon. And I was making the hand gestures. So for an audio media, it doesn't help, but trust me, it made the scene.
Okay, where do we leave off?
Well, okay, so he's in the dungeon. The dragon attacks. Kind of earthquakes are happening.
Earthquakes are happening.
A magic white horse appears. And he rides through the castle, threatens the king by shaking his fist, and jumps through a hole in the wall.
Exactly. And he escapes.
That's right.
Okay.
And this is the scene that you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
where all the townspeople are around listening to Ian McDiarmid as this preacher. The Lord will protect us from the dragon. There is no dragon. No evil can walk this earth.
Wait, no, I think he said actually something like, prayer and song will be our shield, or some ridiculous thing like that.
Meanwhile, the camera's having a seizure, right? It's all over the place. It's all over the place. And then, like, we're on Legends of the Hidden Temple. Like, the land starts to raise up and topple over, and he's just standing left. Like, one guy with his spear is being consumed by a pit. A tree falls on him, and the apocalypse happens. It's great. It's great.
And then, of course, your favorite scene where the priest is just standing there and the dragon rises from a crevasse that has opened up and just basically flambés.
Ends him. He's gone.
Yeah.
And and again, if we needed practical effects, it's right here. And they take a dummy, they cover it in a flame jacket, and they just light the damn thing on fire.
Yeah.
And it's also funny because, again, he's a preacher and he's peering into a fiery pit from hell. And he's like, you know what this needs? A psalm.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just, no. You run. Everyone else ran. You run. But also, again, we're now 45 minutes or so into the movie. We're about halfway.
Yep.
Still haven't seen the dragon. Even here, it's like a silhouette and then a flame attack.
You're just seeing like from a certain angle, or you're seeing like just the faintest edge of the side of its face.
And smart camera work as the camera pans up over its head. And then we see the back of the dummy prop, and then he's turned to dust, right?
Exactly.
And it's just, God, it's so funny. It's so well done. It's so well paced. And he's turned to a crispy critter. I don't know what to tell you. And we have this one witness, the guy with the bad piece and the white beard. And he's like, and he runs off. We see the white horse, and our hero arrives. And the dragon now is overhead, burning everything in the village.
Absolutely.
And so now, halfway through the movie gets undone, and we have to start over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of fun.
So now, basically, he has to hide because the king's men are looking for him.
Right.
Okay. And I don't remember the exact order, but apparently they determined the formula is he's going to kill the dragon.
Right.
So they have to acquire everything he needs to kill the dragon.
Right.
And what he needs is a weapon.
Right.
Which handily, apparently, Valerian's father, which, by the way, he is credited as Valerian's father. I kid you not, in the credits.
Considering how many lines he has, that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Valerian's father pulls out of a river a forged weapon that he calls Dragonslayer.
Which is funny to me because, like you mentioned before, this is already medieval.
Yeah.
It could, like, you could have gone full on like medieval Christianity, be like, this is the spear that slayed Jesus.
Oh yeah,
right?
Longinus'
like
spear,
the spear of destiny, right? Like, and then there's like a divine light. Like, you could go full hog. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, instead, it's the Legend of Zelda, and in the stream, he found
she finds this
the quest item.
The quest item, exactly. So he has to get that. At the same time, I want to say Valerian's sneaking into the dragon's den, stealing dragon scales,
right?
So she can make him a shield, and
looks like a Ninja Turtle shell at the end.
Yeah, and while the new phase of the lottery is going on, you've got Galen sneaking into the castle to find the necklace,
right?
And so all this is happening, and I don't remember the exact order, but those are the three things that apparently have to happen before you can go fight the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, because now that the dragon's active, as Charlie mentioned earlier, they think they need to have another virgin sacrifice.
Exactly. That will appease the dragon.
And I don't know if we mentioned what the necklace is, but it's like a gem that we mentioned that the manservant had, which essentially, we find out later, trapped the soul of the wizard. Yeah. But it's kind of a magic medallion. Yeah. And
that's what Galen was using to do magic. But like you said, sometimes when his confidence wanes. But here's the thing. If it had maybe the soul of the sorcerer, maybe the sorcerer was determining when and when not magic needed to happen for the purposes of the story. We'll get to that later.
We also should mention that he looks like a Southern lady clutching his pearls when he does it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's kind of and again, he's doing the magical hand gestures like we're watching a bad Harry Potter porn parody. But like, it's very funny how he does clutch his the necklace every time he tries to do force magic, which again is funny now that we know that Emperor Palpatine is in this. But yeah, so the townsfolk are like, we need another sacrifice. And at this point, the princess develops class consciousness or whatever. And she replaces all the names in the basket with her name 1,000 times. And the head priest advisor guy draws the name, doesn't want to say that it's actually the princess, but the people he hears it from the crowd, like the wrestling match.
The crowd is like going, read the name. And so he reads it, and then the king is like, oh no, that's an error. He misspoke. That's not the real name. And everyone's like, wait a second. Shenanigans.
Which is so funny because you'd think that people would be like, oh, our princess, but no one cares. Everyone wants her to die, which is kind of funny.
Because they're like, yes, make it the princess. And I was like, alrighty then.
But I also just want to say, like, everyone has a good costume, and it's quite the choice. Like the king in his like regalia.
Yeah.
The head advisor with that kind of like it's like a Dutch girl hat, but it's also like kind of a cardinal's hat.
Yeah.
It's really something. And he's wearing this tunic. Everyone made choices, and it's wonderful.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't know if it's actually like period. I mean, grand fantasy world with dragons. What is period? But it just feels like it's right.
Which is funny because we mentioned of the earlier movies, Excalibur is around the same time.
Yep.
And they fucking committed to the medieval right? You know half their budget was just to that metal plate mail that they wear, that armor, like it's remarkable. And here they're like, but what if a fancy hat? And it's so good.
Let's be honest. Excalibur was lots of plate mail, lots of like sheer fabric, and lots of Vaseline on the lens.
Dude, it's all in soft focus. They must have hired a cinematographer from a soap opera.
Exactly.
And it's a great movie, and I'm making fun of it, but it's truly remarkable. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. But they commit to it being serious to the point where if you're a little stoned or drunk, you'll be laughing the whole time because how hard they commit to it.
Indeed. Probably one of the last movies I remember having an intermission.
Oh, yes, it does. Which I'm going to get the years wrong, but I think Monty Python is directly parodying it because they also have that intermission in the last 45 seconds right before the end. Because, and here you can watch this and be like, at any moment, Robin Hood could show up because, again, the princess during the slaughtering scene is Maid Marian. She's wearing the velvet with the crown on, and she's like, "And I must be sacrificed for the good of the people." And you're like, "Oh, of course you are."
Yeah, exactly. She's like all signed up for it. She's like, I must right the wrongs," and everyone's like, "Well."
Fuck
she
it.
Said it.
Yeah, not me, killer.
and of course the king is forced into this, and he doesn't love it. So he goes back into the castle,
right?
And he confronts Galen because Galen's looking for the necklace, can't find it. Well, that's because the king is wearing it, and he basically hands it to Galen and says, "Save my daughter.
Kill the dragon so my daughter can live." Right?
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Spoiler: he doesn't.
He doesn't. No. And also at this point, Valerian also is like,
"Yeah,
I know you're a woman now, but now you still have to go fight."
Yeah.
Right. Because that's what the dad's kind of doing. Your slightly longer hair can remain, but we need you to fight the dragon too.
Exactly. So now that they have apparently most of the items they need, what Galen determines is that he needs to magically reinforce the Dragonslayer.
Right.
So he takes the blacksmith and who is, of course, we've determined it's credited as Valerian's father.
That's right.
And
spoiler, I guess.
He uses the necklace to make like the
Magic fire.
Dragonslayer
I mean, what do you
magic fire, and Valerian's father hammers it a couple times, sort of some weak blows, but whatever. I'm not judging. Actually, I am.
I will also say at this point, Peter McNichol's Galen character has like a green shawl over his shoulders.
Yeah.
And he looks like Merry or Pippin from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he's got that cute baby face and the curly hair.
The curly hair, he really does.
It's like, oh, it's a hobbit. Oh, all he
like,
needs is big hairy feet.
The hobbits ain't the ones who kill the dragons. I'm sorry. They just
exactly.
But yeah, using the magic fire, they kind of power up again.
Exactly.
This stinks of Dungeons and Dragons. Now using a gem, your sword is more powerful.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing, and they show it by having like him just like let the Dragonslayer hit the anvil, and it just cuts through the anvil like a hot knife through butter.
That's right, and we mentioned the magic fire, but it really is. I mean, this is 81, so some Star Wars have come out, some Star Trek has come out, some of the movies are back, right? But that's what it looks like. It's like someone took a highlighter over it, and then they just because like when you heat up metal, it does turn orange. That's not this orange.
No. This is like this is like magic highlighter orange.
And when the hammer hits it, it glows like a lightsaber. It's like wong, wong.
With sparks that are clearly like post prod.
Oh, absolutely.
So anyway, he's all like, done up. He's got his magic spear thing. He's got his dragon scale shield.
Right.
And he's got his necklace.
And on the other half of the movie, they're taking the princess to be killed.
Correct.
And she's wearing this kind of baptismal gown and a flower crown, like we're watching Midsommar, and it's really something, right?
It is, and she's strung up on the post, and Galen charges in there like he's going to save her.
That's right.
And she's all like, "No, thank you, I'll pass." and then of course you got Tyrion shows up, and he's like, "Look, I'm not going to let you interrupt this because it's going to cause all our homes to be destroyed." So there's a fight between Tyrion and Galen. Galen actually cuts the princess free and says, run. She runs, but she runs into the mouth of the cave because she needs to do her duty.
That's right. We should also mention around here is when Valerian and Galen hook up.
Oh, yeah.
And this is such an 80s scene.
Oh, yeah. Like, the night before the hero goes to fight.
And she's like... he's like, I must go fight, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, oh, the princess sure is beautiful. And he's like, I'm in love with you. Make out for a second. And it's just, and again,
it's a wholesome make out,
It is. It's very squeaky clean, 1980s teen comedy kind of thing.
Yeah. All the clothes were on, all the hands were above the waist.
I don't even think they touch each other. I think they just
kiss. Yeah.
And she's holding the basket of dragon scales at this point too, right? Like it's all together very, very, very clean.
Yeah.
And then they have the fight where the sword kind of cuts through the staff of the shaft of the spear, but the spear cuts through the dragon. Dragon doesn't die.
Yeah. Well, Galen goes into the cave.
Right.
And what we can assume are maybe the dragon's babies?
Yeah, they mentioned that they're babies.
And he murders them all. Attaboy. And then he goes to fight the dragon. It is of note that where he finds the dragon is deep within the cave in a lake of fire.
Yes.
But he doesn't realize it at that time.
No. He does not. Don't worry. Don't worry.
There's a fight between him and the dragon. It's actually extremely well done.
Yeah.
This is probably some of the best effects in the entire movie.
Yeah.
It's everything's very practical. Everything felt incredibly realistic.
Well, and again, like we were talking about how. So the scene right before this is Galen versus Tyrion. We mentioned that, and of course Galen wins, Tyrion loses. But like. All they did is have a slow motion fight, and every time the weapons contacted anything, there was a
sparks.
Yes, And it was like, and again, it's all post-production. It's very, and it moves kind of slowly because I guess these are expensive props, but it's made up by the fact that 90 seconds later we have this dragon fight starts, and it starts very much like
and the dragon fight went on for a minute.
It goes on for a hot minute,
but
it even starts with like, what is that Ray Harryhausen movie? But like, because he's walking down into the lake and there's fire everywhere, and it's very dramatic, like they're fighting the Medusa or something, and the medallion's going and there's fight. Like they thought this scene through. This is the sizzle reel of the movie.
Yeah, indeed. Well, they took. I don't know. Okay, if Daniel was here, I'm sure he would have the right name for what this effect is or what this technique is. But every time they showed the dragon attacking someone,
right,
they would show it slowly rising, and your perspective is behind the dragon,
right,
looking at the victim.
Right.
And that was a very common approach that they did. And it was extremely effective for what they needed because they didn't need to move the face and make the face look realistic because you're catching it from the back.
Yeah, it's almost a two-shot where it cuts from him to behind the dragon. And it works. And then every so often they give us kind of like a reward.
Yeah.
The dragon in profile shooting fire.
Exactly.
And it's a great shot.
or you get to see the eyes up close.
Yeah. And we still have the dragon attacking. So,
real quick. I do have to point this out. I did spoil it earlier. When he finally went into the cave and killed all the baby dragons.
Right.
Apparently they've been feasting on the princess.
That's right.
Elspeth. And it was just like, oh, well, that's sad.
Almost hero.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so he hits the dragon like 2-3 times with this spear.
Yeah.
I mean, jumping down from the ceiling on him, etc. And he gets him really good in the neck, but then the spear breaks.
The spear breaks off, right?
And so it's stuck in the dragon. He can't get to it, so he has to run for his life.
That's right. And which is great because you don't expect the hero to start running like a coward through the back end of the movie. And it's funny because I don't know. I'm sure people knew the runtime at the time, but like we're like an hour 30 of a movie that's like an hour 50 with credits, and the hero is making a break for it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, what the hell is going on? Because like I said, this is where it starts to get disjointed, and I think that's where some of the problems. I think this is why it's not very popular, is because it starts to get too complicated for its own good.
That's right. Because essentially what happens here at the end is after the princess revives him, it's when it hits him that this lake of fire is a lake of fire.
Oh, no, not the princess. It was Valerian.
Oh, sorry, Valerian.
Because he runs back to Valerian and tells her, I screwed it up.
I done screwed up.
Screwed up. And so basically Valerian's father, as credited in the credits, tells them, y'all need to leave because this is going to become terrible, and the king is probably going to have you killed.
That's right. And
so they run off.
They run, and this is when it hits Galen.
Yeah,
right.
He's staring in the lake because apparently he has magic powers that allows him to see the future in the lake or things in the lake.
And this is when the gem activates.
Yep.
And he resurrects the wizard.
He runs back to the cave.
Right.
And then dumps the ashes into the lake of fire that's in the cave.
Right. Green flames appear like before.
Exactly.
And he comes back. It was good food, which is funny.
Yeah, it did have a couple of cute, funny moments like that. But yeah, he's like, we have to go. And so they go to the top of a mountain.
Yeah.
And then the final scenes begin.
That's right. And so, the apocalypse is coming down in the town, and they're panicking, and up on the hillside on top of this mountain, the dragon's flying around. The wizard has his staff out. He's trying to cast out this dragon. And this is what he's like, first you have to kill me.
Yeah.
Like,
you'll know when, but there'll be a moment where you have to kill me. You have to kill me by breaking the
gem.
The gem.
That's right.
And of course, this is the part also where the worst effects are, because they're doing this dragon against a cloudy green screen.
Oh, dude. The lens wasn't cleaned or something. It's really noticeable.
It is. It's probably. It's for the time, it's not bad.
No.
But it's nowhere near as good as everything that we have seen thus far. And I think that, they really didn't have much where else they could go with this. So I guess they had to spend all their money for something this climactic.
Yeah, I mean, and the end of this movie is the dragon has the wizard in his claw.
Yep.
They're flying around, and again, it's an above shot where this poor old man is just in a claw. And
yeah,
like, help me, help!
And definitely the scene with the dragon, I'm getting some Harryhausen vibes.
Very much, very much. And then he smashes the jewel.
Yep.
And the dragon explodes just
absolutely and falls to the ground.
That's right, and turns to stone, and it's bleeding, and yada yada yada. It's all scarred
clearly
out.
Dead.
And the king shows up with a sword and stabs it in the neck, and it goes, "I am the Dragonslayer."
Yeah. All hail Cassiodorus Rex, the Dragonslayer. And it's like, huh? And like literally, like Galen and Valerian are standing there right next to him when he does it, and they look at him like, "Who the hell are you?
What?
What the hell is going on?"
Yeah, Verithramax Pejorative is the name of the dragon, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the end of the movie.
That's kind of no.
They start walking off.
They start walking off, and he's all like, "Well, I guess I never really had magic." And then he's like, "I wish I had a horse." And then a white horse appears.
And the white horse appears.
So it's sort of like, maybe he has magic.
Wink.
Wink.
But yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And I guess since we're talking tapestry here, this was the second movie that Disney and Paramount worked on together after Popeye from 1980.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But I will say this: it was a good movie.
Yeah.
It just sort of got lost in the third act.
It did. And I appreciate the runtime because it moves so quick you don't think about it.
Yeah, that is true.
Because you can make it longer and make it more of a complete film, a little bit more of a thinker, fix that third act. But at 90 minutes, I think it's a better movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just surprised that I know this is a modern thing where we have to have 6 versions of every movie. I'm surprised there hasn't been a remake. I'm surprised there weren't sequels. Because they do a nice world. It looks good. It feels good. This could have had 2 sequels. Turns out that wasn't The Last Dragon, right? Like,
exactly.
He's going to Ireland this time. He's going to fight an Irish dragon. Like, I don't know what it is, but, like they have they build it up. At one point, he's holding up a tooth. This isn't a claw. This is a tooth. It's a dragon. And you're just like, ooh, there's going to be a dragon in this. And it pays off. This isn't a shitty special effect later on. They put their money where their mouth is. So I kind of like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so that's where we are. We're gonna wrap it up here. I think we recommend it, though it's harder to find as we're recording than it will be when it actually comes out, when you can now buy it on Blu-ray, and I assume it will end up on Paramount Plus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine it wouldn't.
Yeah. But as I set these things up on a tee, our next episode is episode 399, which is on The Room because you guys hate us. But that means episode 400 is right on the horizon, and we've already hit 400 episodes doing this nonsense.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for doing all you do to make sure other people hear this. And thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Season 9 of Myopia Movies is produced by Nick Hoffman and Daniel Sudis. It is hosted by Nick Hoffman and stars Daniel Sudis and Matt Quinn. The theme music is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod of Incomtech.com and is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and review us wherever podcasts are found. Thanks, guys.